this word God, I think, charged. I mean, it holds a lot of meaning in today's culture.
The most true part of the phrase of God, I love you is the I love you part. I understood the harm, and it enrages me to see how God, the name of G-O-D, is used.
Origin of how this podcast started was in a season where I felt very small and I felt very lost. I didn't know who I was.
Welcome to the GILY Pod, short for God, I love you. What we say to each other when life cracks us open in grief, joy, or surprise.
It's where our soul friend mirrors back the love and truth we've forgotten.
I'm Meredith.
And I'm Devany, together walking the messy, mystical, unapologetically feminine path where we've left the rules but kept the reverence.
We start where it hurts, we stay for the healing.
We're so glad you're here.
Welcome back to episode 5 of GILY. You heard that right. We're rebranding. We are only 4 episodes completed, and this thing has taken on a mind of its own. And, you know, that's something that we noticed episodes 1 and 2. We had laid out this entire episode arc of 12 beautiful episodes when we sat down to plan season 1. And by episode 2, we threw it all in the trash, and this thing became something completely different. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today is rebranding. And, PSA, you can rebrand yourself as many times as you fucking want. And that's exactly what we're doing with this website.
Website, podcast, socials.
With this website, podcast,
Girl,
everything we've already done.
It's everything we've done. We're going to do it again. But you know, one of the things I think can agree on as a core value is evolution. That we both really value evolving. And so we can rebrand as many times. And I think in particular with the pod, I and you both are so grateful that people are listening, because we made this, out of a COVID book club, and they thought maybe this could be a supportive space for other people because it's been supportive for us. And so the fact that you've listened, and then we've had feedback from inner circle, from community, from friends, and finding out that God, I love you, which many of you understood as the thing we say to our beloveds, our best friends, our family, holds this word God. And this word right now is charged. Perhaps it has been a charged word throughout human history. And Meredith and I have in particular been paying attention to the cultural moment in which we live. And at the same time, with our neurodivergent brains, like holding this really wide, expansive, eternal landscape at the same time. But the intersection of today and now, this word God is just, I think charged. It holds a lot of meaning in today's culture. So we want to talk about it and why we have landed on naming GILY.
Which is an acronym for God, I love you. I'm sure you guys are brilliant, and I'm sure you figured that out.
But okay, so after we launch the pod, and after there's a couple episodes, Merritt, talk about like when Pam's would be like, God, I love you. And you'd be like, God, like not that God, like the God, like, and we found ourselves like justifying and explaining what we meant by the language.
Yeah. It, this is like marketing 101, as we were reminded. I, most embarrassingly, hold a master's degree in marketing. So this really just, is a moment of humility for me. But whenever we would take this name around to other people, we would say, oh, the podcast is called God, I Love You. And we were so quick to say, but no, not that God. It's more like what you say to a friend. And we started to notice that the more we had to explain what it was, there was this discomfort of using the word God. And it's not for lack of reverence and not for lack of experience. It's because of the reverence and because of the experience with what we have with God that makes us question this word and the usage of it in this moment. Because God now has been co-opted. God has been co-opted. And this is now the spirituality of, I say now, this for millennia has been a spirituality of domination,
Of
of
empire,
of taking over one's intuitive beliefs and intuitive sensations and putting a prescribed set of those things on top of people's bodies and psyches and understandings. And so by somewhat separating ourselves from that definition exclusively of God, we hope to land in a different place.
Yeah. Because we have landed, we found as you scroll to find us on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, that we would be alongside other content creators that were using God in this way that you just described of domination, supremacy, of some people get saved, some people don't. Here's a prescription of, I'm going to say salvation. I mean, it's kind of
Well,
where
that's
we
the word.
felt. Right. And in the work that I do today and sitting with people to explore their spirituality and to explore how to name the unnameable, that which cannot be seen, like I found, like I don't use the word God often because of the hurt of institution. So there are folks that have church hurt, that you have been in church and God is used as this weapon of how you should behave, how you should like how your sexuality should be. And then you expand even broader to the current time we're in, Mare, of what MAGA has done with the word God. And right now, MAGA is taking the name of God, co-opting Christian language into slogans like God's people or one nation under God, to justify white supremacy, exclusion, internment, abject violence. This Christian nationalism is not what we align with, and we emphatically reject it. And when we see God's name being co-opted by politics like this, gosh, we have been grieving and raging because the divine is being distorted into something incredibly violent and like a weapon. That distortion is happening right now through policies and laws that harm immigrants, LGBTQIA people, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And we cannot and do not align with empire's co-opted use of Christian language. But when I had friends come to me and say, Devany, that word God has harmed me or is actively harming me, I was like, oh, okay, pause. I missed that. That was definitely not our intent when we released the name. But just because it wasn't our intent, there was still impact. And it felt really, really important to listen to the impact, particularly because I'm a white-bodied woman with privilege. I mean, as is Mare, where when we talk about God, there is not immediate harm happening to us in the ways that it is happening to people I know and love of marginalized identities. And that felt like a pause to say, we are sorry, like deeply sorry. And this is how we want to make it right. We are like, okay, we can remove the name God out of the title and land it on GILY, because GILY represents this phrase of our love of one another, of people, of the experience of being a human. And we want that to feel open and inclusive to you. So that's the name change. And you said, Mare, something that struck me. And you had said to me that the grief of the untruth that God is harmful has really wrecked your soul. In a fresh way. I don't think this is new, that this name has been used to harm people. It doesn't make it okay, but that there's such an untruth to that.
Yeah. Yeah. The we can speak of this like cohesively now after having fleshed it out for weeks. But there was a really deep grief. I didn't know what I was actually grieving until a recent conversation we had. Because the way that and to be clear, like Devany and I, we came at this name change from two different
Mm.
perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Devany experiences the world like from the ground up with, as she
Yes.
says, hearing the hum of the grass and being deep in the forest under the leaves. And
Mm.
she has a very earthy
Yeah.
intelligence about her. And that's her first place of access. And my first place of access is realm like
Mm.
the realms that are not made of matter and
Yes.
sustenance, and it's more from the sky. And so we come at this from two very different perspectives. Devany works with people and their bodies and how their bodies are feeling and holding trauma. And I work with people's energetics and
Mm.
how the energies are affecting their bodies. And we clear them out from the two different directions.
Mm.
And that's also how we come to look at this. And there was such a deep grief for me of having experienced God in my childhood as this deep sense of purity and the one true thing, and how I knew always that while being church, something was just off and didn't
Mm.
feel right, and it hurt,
Mm.
and there was this disresonance because that wasn't the pure God that I knew. And so as we were talking about this name change, I just couldn't understand. I couldn't put two and two together. I understood the harm, and it enrages me to see how God, the name of God, is used. And it was also something I didn't want to let go of the purity of God. And so we
Mm.
just went back and forth and back and forth. How do we integrate these two ideas of God, I love you? When you say God, GAWD, to
Mm.
your bestie, your soul friend, the one who's taking you through life, and God, without ruining the sacredness or stomping on anything. How do those two things come together?
Mm. I think what we said of God, I love you, the real focal point of that slogan and for both of us is the love. Like there's
Yeah.
no like we can come from a very shared place that love is this unseeable force that heals, that brings harmony, that brings new life, that is evolution and is deeply relational. While also, Mary, as you were saying, you come from the sky, like I see you coming from the stars, like this
Mhm.
eternal view that can see beyond. But we're not belittling the current moment because we are living in a time such as this. This podcast was born in a time such as this where I am actively rejecting names of God that harm people. And it is coming out of a love of that unnameable love of
Yeah.
God, God, that as you held it as pure, shared by multiple religions, shared by, just we're not theologians and we don't pretend to be, but we do have a deep dive into wanting to know and feel our own aliveness in this spiritual sense, right? And so when you were describing like the purity of it for you, meaning like the eternal, um, undescribable yet ever present energy that is always evolving and flowing, like to have to release that is a deep grief. And
Mm.
while also knowing like holding it right now doesn't align with the kind of one love that you and I both know. And so I think where we landed of like saying GILY, like, God, I love you, JWD, like you say to your best friends and your people, which is actually a lot of where I feel the felt sense of the divine love is through relationship. Or
Mhm.
God, like we were kind of talking about that. Do we ever mean like God, like God, I love you when we say that? And you had this like beautiful revelation that you just said in a conversation we shared prepping for this, which was like God in me sees God in you. Like I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Well, you had asked me whenever you said, God, I love you, are you talking about like really loving God? And I said, I mean, no, maybe 2% of that is God, God, I love you, because that is it's such a sensed thing, loving God for me at least. And what it really is the most true part of the phrase of God, I love you is the I love you part.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that God is in you. I see the God in you. And I know that you see the God
Mm-hmm.
in me. And this is that idea we talked about early on in the podcast, one of the very beginning episodes, that God exploded itself into these pieces, these fractals of itself, and those fractals became us. And they became the trees and the animals and whatever other planet. And so there is a mirror or a piece of God essence in each of us. And so we're just here bumbling about this world, starting to learn what God wants to learn, and knowing what God wants to know by relationship to each other. This is the reason that this is a soul friendship podcast, is because we can see and bramble about becoming and unfolding with one another. We can be each other's mirrors, and learn to love what God loves. Whatever it is that you are desiring is what God is desiring. You're one and the same. What you enjoy is what God enjoys. What you want to talk about is what God wants to talk about. God's on this ever expanding mission of growing itself bigger and adding more data points and knowing itself more. And this is why we know that our universe is expanding. It's one and the same. We are expanding. We are God. Our universe is expanding too.
I love that,
And that's
Meredith.
why.
Do it. Bring it
Well,
home.
to your point of like rejecting where we land on some of these searches in these search pages, I like a core value, or probably better said as a litmus test for us, is if there is any place that is making God smaller, or making us smaller, or making humanity or people smaller, that doesn't align with our ethics. And it's also just not the way, it's just not the way of our biology. It's not the way of our universe. If we're always expanding, why would we go against our naturalness?
God. And you mean like landing on a search page when you look up the podcast, just to give folks a reference point. But I love what you said there of, if it's going to limit, exclude, have any sense of supremacy, hierarchy, like that is not in alignment with flourishing for all. Because the origin of how this podcast started was, but in a season where I felt very small and I felt very lost, and I felt like I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know why there was a worldwide pandemic happening. And again, I'm acutely aware of the level of suffering that is occurring today too. Like don't want to jump over or like it's important to speak to the particularity of my experience and your experience. And that's how this art is being formed. Like this podcast is art. And the art came out of a really dark, small time in my life where I just didn't know my identity, and I didn't know what to say of my spirituality, and I didn't understand the unseen realms, what was happening. And not that I understand more today, but maybe I have a deeper knowing, maybe not more thinking knowledge about it. But in that season, I was so lost, and I texted you like, hey, would you want to like read some books that might answer some of the questions I'm having together? And you were like equally spinning out in a different way. And for whatever reason, the universe aligned that you said yes. And I mean, we started reading books like that would give language to who and what is the divine, who and what am I, what is purpose, what is suffering. And we just followed our questions. But it was really, Meredith, that I knew I didn't have to exile any of my parts. I didn't have to shut down or cover up or make small some of my shadows, the places I was deeply ashamed, the places I was deeply afraid. Like, I'm afraid if I change the way I think, I'm going to lose everything I have. I'm afraid that I don't know what my purpose is. I have to cut off the fact that I can be too much and I need to get smaller, right? Like all of these types of, I think in spaces where someone tells you there's a right and a wrong answer. At that time, like within the evangelical church, like I entered into that because there was an answer for everything. And I had, before COVID, experienced a lot of loss and really didn't understand anything. And the mystics and the contemplative spirituality of my upbringing held everything in question, like live into the question. And I was like, damn it, I want an answer, But after 8 years of moving into the evangelical church and listening to the answers, COVID hit. And I was like, something is not, like, I'm scared to ask. I'm scared to be seen. I might get kicked out. I might get, and you were a place where I could bring all my questions and all of my curiosities. And you mirrored back to me a lot of love. And I found that felt sense of love and enough space, right? Enough, you hold a wide view lens. And it has always been a gift to me because I have enough room to try it, to consider it, to feel it, to live a question while being held within a container of love. Which makes me want to say, when you say I'm very humbled, I have a marketing degree. And I was like, bitch, there is nothing about the fact that we have to rebrand is not because you're not smart. It's because there's some great mystery as to how this podcast is evolving in its art form that is outside of us that we cannot tame. But we can.
I love you so much.
But we can have intention. We can listen when people tell us that word hurts me. We can listen when people say, what do you mean when you say God? And we want a name. We're not here to give you answers. You're going to leave with more questions.
Yeah.
But there's
That's
space.
one of the beautiful things that came out of that conversation was when we were prepping for this, I think the last thing you said in that conversation was, wow, we just learned so much about each other.
It's true.
Because we realized how differently we see God and why it was so painful for me to give up God and why you spent 12 hours being like, yep, fuck it. Don't care. That's a real shitty word right now. And yet there are spaces where that word is still held reverently.
That's true.
That we feel good participating in those spaces and still, like you're saying, holding the wide lens of that's not everyone's story. And we know, to a fairly good degree of who our demographic is here. And most of the demographic are people that have been harmed by the name God. So we hold the harm and we hold the hope of the name God. And in the meantime, we're inventing our own language and smashing all of these concepts into the one word of GILY.
Yeah.
We're like, God, I love you, because we're realizing the more we go through this process is that we need new language. There are even things that Devany and I, we'll get into this in a different episode, although I'm pretty sure we said we would never say that phrase again because it never, the tags always keep changing, but we don't know if we're ever going to talk about this again.
Comment. Send us a comment.
Yeah.
Send us a comment. Post a comment. Dear God, I'm a millennial grandma. Go ahead.
I know, right? We just don't see one subject in the same way at all. And I won't say at all. There's a heartfulness that you and I share on many things, but the perspectives vary. And so we are creating a new language because some of it doesn't sit well for me and some of it doesn't sit well for you. And we're here to try to find new ways to talk about concepts that have been harmful.
And I think alongside that, idea of new language coming out of creating language that, because there's some that we don't see the same. I will say, in this process of us being like, we got to change this name. What are we going to do? It took time. It took space. And I kept returning to this deep truth again, why this is a podcast about soul friendship, is because my relationship with you, Meredith, it's changed me so much. And I think about, because of there's a sacred alchemy to not agreeing, to not seeing all the time. Because if I was just friends with people who look like me, talk like me, are going to agree that everything I say is right, I become stagnant and rigid and stuck. Like it's the fact that I believed you and you were like, there's something about it I can't let go of. And there was an echo in my being that's like, when I come from the eternal lens, I agree with you. And I'm so temporally here in this moment, but I could feel like the stretching, growing pains. And I mean, you and I are in active growth. Like we can agree that GILY, the phrase that holds God, I love you, you spell that the way that you're going to spell that for you. And I will spell it for me, and our listeners will spell it for them, because we are not interested in telling you what's like in directing you. Like you had said that, Meredith, like we're not here to direct people, but we are here to ask and to listen. And where we disagree, I trust there is expansion coming and resolution will arrive. It will. I mean, I don't know how or what, but I think there's just not enough spaces where disagreement is valued as growth edge. Like, and I trust you deeply. So,
oh God, Devany, I think the theme of our season so far of this podcast has been particularity in the whole. And that's exactly what you're speaking to right here in like, if we can hold that as two friends, and if you and God, the way you did this through this process was just so open and graceful and allowing, that you held a space for a disagreement and trusted that third way was going to appear. We had our two opinions, and a third way is going to come out, and we can feel the sensation of it growing. And if people could take that into their marriage, into their friendship, into their, they put those glasses on before going on Instagram, that knowing that I'm about to be confronted with something that is not, I do not see it that way. And you employ this aphorism, which you're kind of talking around, which is, if I truly understood, I would not disagree. If I truly understood, I would not disagree. And that is to say that if I understood where you are coming from, everything would make sense, and I wouldn't disagree with why you're bringing this here. And maybe that even is a good idea, and maybe it doesn't work with like how I've been thinking. We just don't know what we're going to find until we mine down into the juice. God, that sounds gross. That sounds so gross.
I kind of loved it. I was like, I saw like mining down into the core of the earth, which is like molten-y lava juice, and that's the thing though.
Oh yeah.
But the feminine space of like holding what is still in the dark, what has still not emerged out of the nighttime, that is forming within the womb as a new way of seeing and knowing, like allowing that to have space. And what we could agree on was like, well, GILY, this acronym is now a word that represents what we deeply believe in, which is when we love other people, we expand in love.
Oh,
period.
There it is. There it is.
So God, I love you.
God, I love you. I'm doing squats because there's so much energy in my body from hearing that.
And love looks like being patient and listening. We've asked each other so many questions. We've Marco Polo'd. We've what about this word is important to you? What about it causes you harm? What about it can you keep? What about it do you have to throw away? What about it is not okay today, but in a different place it's okay tomorrow? Like, you and I have gotten to know a lot about each other's spirituality just in this.
Yeah.
Call it a disagreement. It is but we couldn't see the same. So we were trying to see the other's perspective.
Yes. And I think now's a good time to take this out to the macro of what might be going on in your life, dear listener. To hold someone else's deep feeling and knowing about something and not getting lost in it yourself. Like, you and I both had moments where we were like, oh, maybe I'll just do it because I love her so much. And it's like, I want to give this to you and you want to give this to me. And
meaning we'll spell it G-O-D or we'll spell it G-A-W-D. We kept going back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah. And I think what you and I did, which I'm so proud of us for doing, is to keep ourselves in our own story.
Yeah.
And I don't mean story like the stories we've made up that are harmful. I just mean like we kept ourselves in our own lives and had confidence in the place where we came from and come from. And my God, how many times does that happen in a day with your coworkers, with your kids, with your spouse? Like, we have a particular place of being and post to hold in this world. And it is critical that we hold it. It's really critical. And we think that it's going to be a binary solution that, well, it's going to be her way or it's going to be his way. It's going to be my way or going to be her way. And usually what happens when we hold both is that the third way appears. And it's beyond anyone's idea. It just sort of arrives. It's such a relief.
Our third way today is welcome to the GILY Pod.
Welcome to the GILY Pod. Welcome back. I really do love a good rebrand because one, I actually like our new tile or the way it's shaping up better than the first one.
Yeah, Meredith is a genius with the visuals. So thank you.
No, it's mostly Canva.
But you know what? I get lost in Canva. That could be a poop for me. I can go down the Canva rabbit hole and lose 2 days with nothing created. So it is a gift, Meredith.
It does have a lot of options in there.
Too many.
But yeah, this is we kind of want to leave you before whoop and poop. I think, right? Is that where we are in the episode?
Yeah. Okay. But you like the new tile? Tell us more.
Well, I like the new tile. And we want to leave you with this open-ended question of what in your life could use a rebrand? Knowing that it's okay to do this 5 minutes in. It's okay to do this 20 minutes in. Like, rebrands are good for the soul. They're good medicine. They're hard. But they bring us back to what is most true for us in this moment. And so if there's something in your life, in my life, that needs to be realigned and adjusted to represent the most true thing in us, go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. We've arrived at our whoop and poop section. This is where each of us shares something that we've discovered lately that's great, that's the whoop, or not so great, that's the poop.
And if you have something you think our GILY gals and pals need to whoop and poop, tell us in the comments or website. We'd love to check it out.
Whoop and poop?
Yeah, let's whoop and poop.
Because once again, I have lost track of the hour and it is time to go get my children.
Love that. We're afternoon podcast recorders. This is true. My poop is Canva to a degree. I just love it and really get lost in it. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that you do the branding stuff. Thank you. That's my poop. My whoop. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to make it real simple. Oh, okay. So this came up. I have been growing. Nothing in my garden worked this year. Nothing survived, except I have a huge now bush of sage. And I have learned that the white sage is nearly going extinct because it's being harvested. And that there are indigenous people and teachers that have said, like, please do not buy the white sage because it's not being, grown and harvested in a reciprocal nature. And so grow your own. And I don't believe mine is white sage, but it's this beautiful sage bush. And so my whoop is I'm like picking off the leaves and letting them dry. And I have sage now because the smell of sage is very grounding to me when it's burned. So that's my whoop.
Oh, that's a big whoop. Okay. My poop is something I've experienced many times in the last couple months. And it is when it's an annoyance when people go around on their cell phone, like watching Netflix or YouTube without headphones.
Oh my God, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst.
Yeah. What level of cultural disarray have we descended into where that is okay? I just am like,
it's astounding. Do you ever just stare at them like really long, hoping they'll stop, but they won't notice because they're watching a show?
Yeah, no, they notice. It's because I'm a projector, and I have heard that projectors, like when a projector, this is human design, gazes at the back of your head, you go, what's that?
Oh my gosh, thank you for making them stop.
It's not 100%. That's not 100% true, but sometimes it works and I'm really angry. My whoop, let's see. It's so easy to find the negative lately, huh?
I mean, there's some brain science to that. Negative is extra sticky. Yeah.
So sticky. My whoop, and I don't mean to like center the pod at every turn, but
marketing degree, baby.
Conversations with you makes me feel so seen and understood, and also gives me practice in doing the same thing. And the real whoop here, there are many, but specifically in this one, is the allowance of time. That was a real gift that you put into this process, and I simply needed a lot of it. And you just, there was no rush. I never felt any rush. So it feels good to feel a good sense of time, because we often feel like time in a bad way a lot of times.
I would agree. And I was going to say, you've built that trust. I trust your timing, because there are some people that say I need time and then they'll never bring it up again. And you have a real way of like, your integrity holds, of like, you say I need time and then you'll polo to be like, I took some time and here's what it is. And that makes me trust to give it to you. So it's reciprocal for sure.
Well, that's reminding me of several things I have not been in integrity in with getting back to people. So that's what I'll be doing.
Hey, what is time?
What is time? I don't have it.
Oh, well, God, we love you.
God, we love you. And thanks for being patient with us and for expanding yourselves too as we start to expand. And we are just so excited for what GILY is going to bring us in the future. Well, you thought you were done because we came to the end of our whoop and poops, but there's one more little thing we would like to add here. And it's a reading from The Prophetess by Shalon Harkin. It's about a 6-minute read, but we have heard that long-form podcasts are in. So if you're willing to give it a try and take a couple of moments of rest, just walk around, do whatever you're doing, maybe do it a little slower, and listen to what she has to say, or rather what she has somewhat divinely downloaded about the name of God. Speak to us of God. And the prophetess spoke. You don't have to believe in God, but please collapse in wonder as regularly as you can. Try and let your knowledge be sideswiped by awe, and let beauty be so persuasive that you find yourself increasingly willing to lay your opinions at her feet. If the word God comes with too many weighty associations that haven't made your heart lighter, experiment with giving God a new name. Find a name that doesn't need so much redemption, that isn't tied to history and old gravity in your heart. Try calling God life, the inspired intelligence that sings through all form and adds poetry to the radiance of the moon. Call it that which attunes us to beauty. Call it the wild grace that encourages the sapling into the oak, that which coaxes the apple tree into the fullness of its blossom. The truth that redeems us from the fallacious notion that we could be anything but love. We want a God that delivers us into the grandeur and nobility of our deeply rooted joy. What else is worth yoking our life to? If a notion of God feels more cage than key, more should than want, more authoritative than attractive, more death than life, more weight than wing, try a way that carries a more mellifluous tone. Try calling it she, who animates the ocean waves, who composes sunsets, who carves the great clay bowls of the valley and uses the steady hands of time to raise the mountains. Call it ancient reality, inspired intelligence, or the magic within science. Call it the ecosystem of light that connects us all. This is the age to lay down the old god of wrath and retribution, to lay down the fearful burdens in your heart that have kept you separate from yourself and without joy. Claiming the agency to redefine God is claiming the agency to redefine your life. Redefining our relationship with God is the kingpin of the new paradigm. For God represents our highest value, what our life most deeply cares about and serves. We could consider God to be the authority of permission we grant ourselves that determines how deeply we'll accept ourselves, how bravely we'll shine, and how fully and truly we dare to live. We've thought of God as being supremely disciplined, a master of morality, an enforcer of commandments. The truth is, she'll throw it all out again and again and again anytime she finds a quicker route to get to your heart. Is God not the quality of relationship between you and all things? Is it not the light that rises like an invisible sea in the heart? And can the darkness that lands there also be treated as God? For if light has never hidden its face from any darkness, then what of its creator? This I know. There is a vast and intimate benevolence here. To surrender is to release our fears into that. To surrender is to release our blocks to receiving into that. And as we do, this benevolence becomes us, and we it, and eventually we see that nothing has ultimately been outside of this. Our understandings of God are malleable. Why not adapt them until we resonate only with the tuning fork of love? Have your first taste of love tonight for that essence that made rainforests, water, trees, and time. Have your first taste of love tonight for that essence of unimaginable intelligence that sang stars and orbits and the immense collection of tiny perfections of all the creatures of the sea into being. Have your first taste of love tonight for that essence that was gracious and giving and unimaginably tender enough to have created you. To have thought you up and said, her. I want to see what her blossom looks like. I desire her style of light. Have your first taste of love tonight for that genius of love who makes flowers ache towards light and hearts that do the same. Have your first taste of divine love tonight. You just might say, I want more of that. That's from The Prophetess by Shalon Harkin. And with that, we leave you with Godspeed and good vibes.
Thanks for being with us on the GILY Pod.
If something stirred or supported you, share it with a friend or leave us a little love in the reviews.
And if not, that's okay. You don't have to like us.
You can find us at gily.pod, Devany at illumin.within, and me at hibernatehealing.
Until next time,
Godspeed,
good vibes, and GILY!